music either.
I'm watching for the.
Okay, we're live.
Oh, we're live.
For the nuance.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome back everyone to our live forum with the candidates. Sitting with us today are candidates Brian Lucid and incumbent Steve Gutierrez for the CSD board. Invitations were sent out to Director Celeste Farron as well as candidate Thomas Lee. Neither one was able to attend today. Celeste, I believe, tried to attend and just was unable to make it work. Thomas, I'm not sure if he responded. But so we're going to talk with these two candidates today. I didn't get them to write us bullet points for their intros.
I did not.
Okay. Why don't we give you guys like a minute to introduce yourselves then? Just real quick, and if you go too long, I'm just going to cut you off, all right? You bet? All right, Brian, why don't we start with you?
I'll start. I'm Brian Lucid. Thank you guys for having us here. Thanks to Shea Homes for letting us use your facility. If you want to know more about me, go to Mountain House Matters and watch that interview where I talked to Corey and Lindell before. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, been 20 years in that, logistics. My family and I live here in Mountain House. My wife Andrew and I have been married for 21 years. My son Ori is going to Mountain House High School, playing on the football team. My daughter's going to Las Positas. And right now I work for the Army at Camp Parks in Dublin, where I'm a management analyst. And my specialties are service contracts, support agreements, auditing, and financial controls for the Army. That's what I do. So that's me, and I live in Wickland.
That was excellent. Steve?
Thank you. My name is Steve Gutierrez. Currently, I am serving as the president of the board of directors of Mountain House CSD. And again, I would also like to extend my thanks to Mountain House Matters and all the staff that came together to put it together, and Shea as well for giving us graciously this location for this awesome setup here. I've been a Mountain House resident since 2004. When we started off, when there was maybe less than about 100 houses, and we pioneered up forward. 2008 was a tough time because it was a dust bowl, but we, our family, we dug in here to stay here, and I'm glad we did, because this place has just populated itself to what we envisioned when we first came down here from the Bay Area. I'm also a retired colonel, but senior to Brian Lucid, as you can tell. He was a young San Jose State student while out there, but we had a great time. But a little bit different in occupation. Mine is a little bit in special operations, his and management, which I think is a great contribution to Mountain House, especially on contracts. But as serving on the board, I've also served as...
On the board.
Okay, I'm getting hand signs back there. But anyway, to go back, serving on the board also as a chair of the Public Safety Committee, and also a vice chair with the state of California for the Department of Corrections and Health Department over in Stockton, was nominated that by the Board of Supervisors. Also, since I've been here in Mountain House,
wrap it up.
Okay,
That's what this
You're on the roll.
I love talking, so you're going to have to give me a
Thank you.
So in closing up here, last thing is flag football going for the champion this Saturday. So Patriots, let's go Patriots. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. All right, so we have a few questions tonight. I believe we're taking some questions from the audience as well. So if you have any questions that you're interested in particularly, send those in, and our lovely reporter Nora will send over any that are good. So I'm going to start with our list of questions. And the first question that I have, and I think that a majority of the people in Mountain House really have, we're going to start with you, Brian, is basically, what do you think your responsibilities will be as a member of the board of directors? What do you think the board of directors is about? What do you think the board of directors does?
I'm pretty sure my responsibilities involve 18 things that are listed on the CST website. I won't list them all, but that gives me an area for what my purview is. So my response, and a couple of the ones I took off of there that I want to bring to the table and work on, is dissemination of information, communication, and getting control of spending. I got my taxes the other day, like everybody else did around here. There's nothing that motivates me more than that tax form. And those are all our appropriations. Those are tax dollars, those are your dollars, and how we spend them is important to me. And we don't have unlimited funds here. We have 14,000 folks, so we do not have unlimited funds. We got to prioritize, and we can't buy everything. And so that's where my skills come in. And what do we need? What do we need to prioritize. So I'm a board member, I supervise the general manager runs the staff. So I don't do the work of the staff, I manage the general manager. I guess you could say we write his rating and we supervise him and we vote on things. That's what we do. So I'm becoming aware of the job of CSD, and I've got plenty of help to understand the things I don't understand right now about it, but I'm willing and I'm able.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can always learn on the job too. So yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see. We're gonna go ahead and do the same kind of thing we did in the last year. We bounce around different questions to each of you. Hopefully, we don't go back and repeat too many other questions, I guess. You mentioned during your introduction that you were part of the Public Safety Committee. A major thing that a lot of our residents talk about and are concerned about is public safety. As a board member, what sort of thoughts or angles would you take towards trying to increase either the actual presence of officers or fire public safety issues, or in addition to that, of course, the communication as well, letting everyone know how the public safety plan works at Mountain House?
That's a good question, Corey, thank you. One of the things is public safety. One of the things I've looked at was on our emergency operations manual, because that is really kind of a synergy to how you respond in a disaster, or how would the community respond to critical incidents. And so that's kind of like the leading thing as far as for us to manage it. And so I took that on, and in fact, Brian was also on my committee, and we spent probably the last year and a half working on resetting that so that it's contemporary with information and that it's able to be responsive to different types of disasters. And we saved a significant amount of money for doing that in-house, because I'm a firm believer there's a lot of sharp people out there that just need to be shoulder tapped, and that we can bring those resources in-house rather than always consulting out. Now, in respect to other like public safety for the sheriff, I mean, I look at crime patterns. In fact, we talked about it at the last public safety meeting about looking at crime data and trends, because that's going to kind of determine whether or not do we need to increase levels with deputies or not. Like, for example, the high school opening up, they need a school resource officer, RSO. So they're in the process of getting that one. But as our population goes up, we need to look at that. Same thing with fire. We're looking at fire services and our contracts and ensure that we're not going to jeopardize our services for cost, but that's the thing we're looking at. It's important that we pay attention to the crime trend patterns, and looking at the type of service we have in response is call for service.
Sure. It sounds like you've recently been looking at the crime trend patterns. Do you feel that the reported crime around that, like on Facebook and other social media, do you feel like it's more of a, if you look at the numbers, do you feel like the numbers are showing the sort of, I don't want to say scared tactics that the, do you feel like the complaints about crime are matching up with the actual numbers that we're seeing?
Well, you know, that's a good question, Corey, because the one thing I like to look at, I mean, Facebook's a good tool to look at to kind of get a pulse, but I like looking at real data, because there's two things about the crime statistics that are reported by San Joaquin County. There's calls for service, which when a person calls the dispatch, and there's actual where action was taken at disposition of a crime. So, for example, a suspicious person, they go out, no one's there. They get a call for theft, they take a report and investigate it. So you look at hard numbers, and that's going to really determine, you know, where we're at. So as far as, I mean, looking at from my past experience in law enforcement of with San Jose Police Department for 25 years, we're probably one of the safest communities in this county. If not, I mean, I would match up in other places. We do have some slight property crimes, and that'll go up as you have new, you know, housing development. But one of the things we're working on is a patrol strategy plan with the sheriff's office, so they can be proactive, looking at certain areas that show, you know, crime patterns, and to hit them off. In fact, last week, a couple weeks ago, when our residents went out tracking down some youth that were going into her house, when she came back, and they nailed 4 suspects, and were able to clear some burglaries on them. So I think we're doing very well, and I'm not that concerned, but we just have to be concerned about the cost that when we do increase with public safety, sir.
Great, thank you. Brian, back to you. You mentioned during your last question that you were concerned about finance to an extent, as far as you needed one of your purviews in the board to be to control finance spending. One of the things related to that a lot of people seem to have questions about is service contracts. Good examples of that being Severn, Trent. You could potentially say the Sheriff's Department, or even the Fire Department as well. I think most people probably think of Severn, Trent when they think about that. Do you have any ideas as far as ways that we can tailor or reduce costs without reducing services for the service contracts that we have, that are, well, the primary service contracts in town now?
Well, one of the things we're going to have to do is take risk, because we don't have enough money to buy everything we want. One of the things we got to do is figure out where does the requirement come from. Is it regulatory? Do I have to do it? Or is it we want? So there's the stuff we have to do, and there's the stuff we want. So I'm going to be looking hard at the stuff we want, and we only have 14,000 folks here. That's our tax base. We can't be purchasing everything. So you have to have budget lines. You have to prioritize what's there. And as a board member, one of my policies or one of my guidance to the staff would be give me a hit list I can go after for reducing our spending. What are the things, what are the discretionary items we can cut? Because we can't buy everything. Something is going to have to get cut. So that's where I'm coming from. I like service contracts because you have a requirement, you're purchasing a requirement, and you're getting your bottom line from that service contract. So our bottom line is our dollar. Now there's quality that you have to weigh in too, but I think service contracts are a great way of doing business. And for our unincorporated town here, we can't buy everything, so we've got to look at that.
I mean, there's a buzzword you just brought up, unincorporated town. A good question that a lot of people have had is, when should we look into incorporation, and what sort of benefits do you think an incorporation could entail us, or potentially even risks? You said we got to take risks. Are there risks involved in incorporation? Have you had a chance to look at that? What are your thoughts on incorporation, I guess is basically what I'm asking. And then Steve, I'm going to ask you actually the same question after.
Well, I like controlling our destiny. So right now we manage 18 services, and that's because we had the vote and we had the numbers to become a CSD. And the folks that are on the board are some of the pioneers that got that for us, and I appreciate that. So we like to control our destiny here. If we want the other services too that the county manages for us, we want to become a town, we have to have the skill set to manage those services and demonstrate that we manage them better than someone from outside can do for us. So there are a lot of risks in taking on the job and you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, of course, that's more taxes that we control. It all comes down to money. If we want the services, we get the taxes for it, we manage it, we've got to make good decisions, and we got to demonstrate that we're capable of making those good decisions. But yeah, I want to incorporate. I want to become the town of Mountain House, and maybe someday we'll annex Tracy, and they'll be part of Mountain House too. I think they'll enjoy us.
Look for the day we put 95391 as a zip code that definitely shows up as Mountain House. Let's Tracy, right? Great. Well, Steve, same question for you. What are your thoughts on incorporation?
Well, my thoughts on incorporation is we looked at it. It's a process. It may take 2 years of a process to incorporate. And then there's either you go as a charter city or as a general law city, and that's something that our general manager, when we feature, we get one, is that is a presentation, and then that's going to be probably something we look at is. We look, you know, as strategic planning ahead. And that is one of our long-term goals. You know, you look at a roadmap of where you want to be with this community, right? And as Brian said, you have to prioritize, because if you go too fast with things and you don't balance it out with your revenue and your rooftops and businesses, and then you put yourself into, like most cities do, in the red. And we're a growing pioneer district to a town, so we should be able to reset that and go in the right direction, and not follow suit to some of these, you know, I don't want to say irresponsible, just not well managed, well thought, planned out process. But certainly, you know, we will be an incorporated city, whether we do a general law or a charter city. That's for us to decide later in the board, and of course the community get involved in that. But I think at this point right now, we have to kind of first get the infrastructure set here.
Okay. You mentioned the general manager when we get one. I guess that's probably a great lead into the next question. What do you think are the key things that the board members and possibly even the members of the town as well are hoping to find and potentially look for in our next GM? I know every GM is going to have strengths or weaknesses based on their own personal history. What do you think are important for Mountain House as far as a GM's history or a GM's skill set?
Well, with Steve, you know, with me personally, and again, that's just things I share with other folks in the community, is, you know, communication is really paramount. It's important. Good communication with the GM. Also understand and have the ability what's going to take us for the next step from here to a town to incorporate as a city. And then understand the organizational structure you're going to need in order to facilitate that. And then also, you know, right now we're going into some contract, what things that we can do that we can handle in-house and then not have to contract out. So you're going to need to find somebody that has that experience, technical, tactical, and operational experience, and strategic experience to do that. And that's and it's a tough task. I mean, to be a general manager or a city manager, and you look traditionally around through most different cities, it's about they're there maybe 2-5 years at max, because it's a very tough job. It's a very political job, because they have 3 lions they have to deal with: the community, their staff, and the board or the city council. And so it's a balancing act. But but personally, to get back, what we're looking at is someone that can take us to the next level and with a positive growth and lead the team forward.
Great, thank you, Steve. Brian, let's go back to you. Different question, actually. What do you think should be the top 3 priorities of the board in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, probably communications up there at the top. Dissemination of information is one of the 18 areas that they're responsible for us. So that's probably, we're seeing a lot of drama, and I think it needs to be addressed. And that's a leadership, a town or a unit or a group of people need to be reassured by their leaders. So that's one of my things that's a concern to me.
The budget, one more.
Okay, so the budget. I mean, sometimes we got to take an appetite suppressant. We can't have everything on the menu. And I told you about how we just got to accept risk in some places, because we don't have all the funds to buy everything. I don't know, infrastructure here. I mean, if we're going to become a town, we got to look like a town, not just a bunch of condos and houses. So infrastructure, public infrastructure, commercial infrastructure, and that. It's not one of the areas that we manage, but I think we need to represent there, and as part of incorporating is to start looking like a town. So those would probably be my top 3.
Sure. You mentioned dissemination of communication in several of your responses so far. I guess maybe could you explain what you mean when you say that? What sort of ideas are you thinking, or do you think what sort of ideas are you going to bring to the table if you're elected, as far as how to get communications out there, how to involve the town, how to involve the citizens?
Well, if you elect me, I'm a public figure now. Now I'm responsible for explaining things to you, because you elected me. You're my constituent. How I spend your money, that's not my money, that's your money, and I have to explain how I'm spending it, and my decision-making process or regulatory guidance. I have to explain those kinds of things. And what I bring to the table is I don't know what the Brown Act is too much. So I think we're going to have we're probably going to have some misfires there, where I'm going to figure it out as we go along. But I am bold and risk-taking, and sometimes I'm an introvert and shy. I have those moments too. But if I'm fired up about something, I start getting bold and risk-taking, and want to address those things. And I've always been successful. I haven't ever been through litigation for anything I've done before, and I don't intend to do it now. But
sure.
That's what I bring to the board. And I've got a lot of experience with leadership and with communication and with policy enforcement and that. And I think those are my strengths.
Same question for you, Steve. What do you think of? Do you have any ideas as far as ways you would increase or improve the communication with the CSD?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things I look at is technology. I mean, we're in the 21st century. I mean, there's a technology that we need to start to, capitalize on using. And we were talking earlier about, like the webcast that we have for our board meetings. We pay for that service. So it certainly can probably use that when we want to put out public service announcements. In fact, I was talking to Brian as well, because we serve on the Public Safety Committee, about ways that we can communicate out there. And we have that resource, but the key is you got to know how many hits you're getting, who's really watching. So there may be a marketing piece of that where you have to market out to get a number of folks to go ahead and turn on the computer and link up to it, because your message is as good as many ears that you hit. And so the first thing I like to do is first identify some means of how we can communicate. And then from the next step is to find out how many folks are going to listen to that, and which one is the best method to use and successful method, and then use those methods to communicate with folks, whether it's a public service announcements, whether it's a GM quarterly message to keep people informed. And so technology is an important piece. And then the other thing is, again, organizational culture of getting folks coming out there from CSD staff of communicating and sharing and listening and bringing back. But technology, thank you.
Technology's definitely a good start, I think.
It is, but we had talked before about in-person meetings as well, and it's
Yes.
important for people to be able to know you, and one of the aims of us doing this type of a format is so people can see who they're voting for, and they don't just go and randomly select a box because it looks good. And we want people to be informed, and to be able to approach you, and obviously you two are great communicators, so we had a discussion about you do have the channel available. So making some sort of a regular option where one board member can be available to the public, or we can host an in-person panel meeting with one or two, or whatever would allow us to be able to connect directly to the board members as people, and it's not just when we get our 3 minutes.
Right, and you know, what's important about that, because I thought about that, you know, after those last 2 years I've been as, you know, as a board member, as well as a president, one of the things that I've learned, as a lesson learned as we learn, as we go through and mature in the positions we're in, is one of the things I would like to do differently is put out once a month, at least every board member, I think, and I'll share that with my colleagues, once a month, you know, set up a date and time where you'll be at a location so that everyone knows, hey, you know, this board member will be here at this location, and they can come and meet you and discuss with you certain times, and make yourself available once a month. And I tend to do that, you know, once a month, maybe for 7 hours, just go out either at CSD or some school site, or go to different villages and be available, and to make, you know, and so folks can come here and talk to me and share their concerns. I think that's important.
So you had both mentioned infrastructure earlier, and we only have a certain number of houses, and eventually we will build out of houses. We won't have any more people moving in. So how do you propose that we get businesses here before that becomes reality? How do we get the Googles? How do we get the Yahoos? Because no one out here wants to, you know, just work at a Noah's Bagels and try to support their family.
Well, that's a tough question, because, you know, right now, until we become our own city, you know, we're not really involved in economic development. But that doesn't say you can't be in a dogfight. There's ways that we can influence and encourage, right? And one of the ways is obviously our colleagues that left from the Board of Education. That attracts a lot of home buyers, but also, you know, that also is going to attract businesses, because they know, hey, you know what, if you have an educational base here, especially with Delta College, so that's an important venue to look at. But to bring in business across, that's something we have to work collectively with the board, with our developers, and, you know, for example, the town center. And then we've had 3 town hall meetings to discuss about that. In fact, that's when I met Brian the first time, and we were both sitting at the same table, and we were talking about our vision of a town and what we like to see. So I think by having those town hall meetings, and engaging the developers and let them know and share what we would like to see here, and then also positive growth. If we can continue to, you know, show a positive spin of Mountain House, that's going to encourage people to come out here. I mean, business. I would bring a business out here if I saw there's a lot of drama and a lot of issues, right? You don't have water supply system, you don't have this, you don't have that. Why would you want to come here? But anyway, that's an important question. But we have to keep our eye on it, because that's one of our destiny for survival.
Brian, same question?
Like Steve said, not one of the areas we directly manage, but we need to represent. The county manages that for us, and we definitely need to represent. Trimark wanted to rezone one of our areas from a commercial district into a residential district. So I had something to say about that. I wrote it on paper and I sent it to the county to represent us. If I'm a board member, my duty is to represent at county too, and make sure, because they don't live in Mountain House, I need to make sure Mountain House is heard when it comes to that stuff. And we need to partner up with our 2 main partners are Trimark and Shea. So we need to partner up with our developers. We will need to compromise on things, because I read Steve's article in Tracy Press, and when the master plan was made, that was a long time ago. So perhaps we need to look at some things now, but definitely we need to establish these partnerships with the commercial folks, bring them in here, because I don't want to be just all condos and houses, and that's what I put in my letter to the county. And I think that Trimark was receptive to the town when we did start speaking up. We're the only ones that are going to represent ourselves, so if we don't say anything, nobody else will. And Trimark heard us, and I think they're willing to, you know, negotiate with us and partner up with us. And we don't have any infrastructure. We're here in Shea's house right now doing this interview, and I'm so glad that they offered this for us. Sometimes we meet in the schools, because that's all we got. So we have to have these partnerships.
So what type of industry do you hope to attract?
Well, I tell you, I mean, high-tech industry, it's a low-tech type of process as far as spec buildings for software engineering. But I like to, to be a hub. Harry from San Joaquin County for Economic Development was over here, and he was a redevelopment agency director down in San Jose. Then when the redevelopment agency kind of disbanded, so then they kind of restarted back in these incubators of jobs for development. And so one of the things their plan is in South County is kind of a light tech, and to be an extension of the greater Silicon Valley. So I'd like to see high-tech companies out here. Delta College is focusing on solar. I think that solar is an important thing we need to look at, but high-tech, I think, is going to draw, not the blue-collar wages, but a little bit of higher elevation of cost, because the cost of living here is not a blue-collar income out here. So high-tech industry is what I'm looking at. Software, development, and in that arena.
We actually have a couple of questions from the audience. We have one for each of you, actually. So, Brian, I'm going to start with you. So the question from the audience, Brian, is that during your discussion so far, you've stated in several spots that you want to take an appetite suppressant, is what you call it. So you may have to cut taxes, you may have to reduce expenditures. Do you have any specifics on that? Like what sort of things you're hoping that you can reduce in order to take that appetite suppressant?
Sure, I have ideas about it, but I was listening to the Lammersville school board folks, and I think it's important for me to not bring my agenda to the table and try to force that on folks. I think a better technique would be to go to the CSD and say, hey, we got to prioritize these things. I want you to give me a list of things that we can cut. And then I, as a board member, I can make decisions on those things that you give me. You got to do the staff work. You got to give it back to me. We got to look at all the costs from things we want. What's the maintenance cost? What's the cost down the road? What's the whole picture? And as a board member, I need that information to make a good decision for this town. That's how I would approach that. Service contracts. I like service contracts. They definitely serve to reduce rates because you're not paying for all the infrastructure and the whole package. You're paying for the service. That's why I like a service contract. That definitely reduces rates because you get the lowest bid too. There's other ways we need to think outside the box. We need to develop partnerships, but we cannot spend money like it's unlimited, because it's very limited.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So Steve, the question for you is that I guess in the next few years there's going to be it's going to come time for repair and for upkeep of some of the older facilities. Have you given any thought to how to acquire the additional funds for those repairs?
Thank you, Corey. That's a good question. There's sometimes I don't sleep at night thinking about that. Yeah, there's certainly, we're already a decade in as Mountain House Woo-Hoo. We've been here for almost 10 years. So we've got a water treatment plant, we have a water sewage plant, and I'll tell you, that's going to, later in the life cycle, it's going to need some repairs that we expand out. I mean, I would say the one awesome thing about Mountain House, and especially our water treatment plant, is we're at a 20 million gallon capacity. So it's built out for to consideration if we total build out. But as anything else, is that right now that water treatment plant is the management of personnel that right now is half the staff. It's not 24/7. At some point in time, there may be a trigger of rooftops that's going to require for a 24/7, and that cost is going to double. So we have to look at those costs, our infrastructure costs, because now we're in a decade in there. Also, we're looking at road maintenance. We haven't done a lot of road maintenance, and I'm concerned about that. Because if you don't, it's like a car. You don't take care of your car, it gets wears and tears, and then the problems become a lot more severe if you would have took care of them. But we certainly, for me, that's one thing that we need to really focus on looking at is our maintenance of our roads and our infrastructure of our water treatment plant and our water sewer treatment plant.
So as far as the infrastructure that you keep mentioning, I believe a few meetings ago we had people coming out and discussing how to route traffic closer to Mountain House around us. Should we go through Byron? Should we cut off at the 580? How are we going to get cars coming in here to create it a more hospitable location, if you will, for other business? Because people don't have to live here to work here. Where are we at with our road system?
Well, there was a talk about the 237 link. I think that was it, right? The 237 link, which is a federal and state And that's on Byron Road, where it's going to be a lateral running east and west, and that's supposed to, there's plans to expand that so that it can facilitate a lot of commercial and a lot of road artery for vehicle traffic. Because understanding that if, in a couple of years, you've got now River Island that, if it populates itself, it's going to be the same size as Mountain House as far as about 44,000, but it's geographically a little bigger than Mountain House. And then you look at Tracy with their plans with Cordis Ranch and Tracy Hills, and if they continue with that thing, that's going to increase. So traffic is going to be a phenomenal issue in the next 20 years. So these are things that's why it's important. One is you have to have, really good relationship with your federal and state representatives, because with each of them have their districts for funding for purposes of roads, especially on the state and federal funding. And for Mountain House, we've had an engineer study as far as going up and down Mountain House Parkway about two years ago, because of Tracy Cordis Ranch wanted to develop that, so we did a study on that, and so how it would impact us environmentally. But as far as right now internally, we have, as soon as they finish on neighborhood C and D, and hopefully start to work on releasing some of the roadways opening up to Grant Road. But I mean, that's going to be a long-term issue that we need to look at 10, 20 years out. And it has to start planning now, because the way the government rolls, the white elephant moves very slow.
Any comments different than yours?
There are civil engineers, there are master planners, they have skill sets that I don't have, but I want to hold them accountable for making up with a plan that makes sense to me. And accountability on that. So I would reach out to the people that represent us there and try to hold them accountable. That would be my.
So you're saying hire professionals?
No, we have staff.
Okay.
We have professionals, and we have folks on county that represent us for the master plan, and we have folks that are supposed to be doing that, and that's what we need to tap in, not hire someone to come in and do something that someone else is already supposed to do, and
So
do it right.
Engage our professionals?
Yeah, engage county, engage, we have engineers on our staff, but the road infrastructure and that's the skill set I don't think we have, routing traffic and roads, but there are people that do that for a living.
So I have a question, just because you brought it up, and this is actually for both of you, one from the inside and one from looking outside with us. So you had mentioned about the CSD maybe not always looking friendly and maybe not putting their best face forward, especially when it comes to attracting business and getting people to run to join the CSD and to represent us. What are your feelings on that right now? How do you feel as a seated member, and how do you feel as someone who's running for this? How do you think people are viewing it? What do you think the citizenry thinks?
If I understand your question, is what is the perception, or what's the current feeling of the community of Mountain House residents about our Mountain House CSD staff?
Board.
Well, I think that really speaks to itself when on November 4th, because on November 4th, they have that opportunity to cast their conviction and judgment. It's a short answer, but it's an honest answer.
Period.
Period. I mean, it's that simple. November 4th is going to be very telling. So, I mean, that's the metrics to measure, right? I can get the crystal ball and go like this, but the reality is on November 4th, the voice and souls have spoke to what their convictions are.
Sure. I think you said with regard to economic development, what are the people's perceptions of the board's responsibility towards that? I think that's the question she asked.
Economic development.
Let's go for all of them.
That's what I thought you would have.
Sorry, there was actually 3 parts. Pick anything you like.
Oh.
You have to recap them now.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so to give fair time to Brian, I mean, because you heard the seated opinion about it. Now here's unseated, so he can.
Definitely easier for the incumbent to come in, hasn't been doing the job to answer this, and because I don't have any track record, I haven't done anything that's made anybody upset with me yet, but I will.
Just give it time.
Yeah. Already mad at you.
The CSD are our face of Mountain House. I think there are public entities that we represent, and I think tough job to do, and no one, I was hoping more people would actually run for the open positions, because when more people run, then I get a choice too, and maybe someone else, does better than me, and that's what I want for the town. There's been nothing but support for me running, so I hope people are watching this and seeing that it's not it's a good thing to run, and I would encourage people with skill sets out there that we need to throw their hats in and run. I've felt nothing but support, everybody's got to do the best they can do, make their decisions with that they're go with their convictions, and there's the art of compromise, and I think that there's a little bit of drama there, like with every organization. We've seen it before, whether you're volunteer, whether you're getting paid, or whether you're, work or whatever. It's all dealing with the egos and being mature enough to be part of the team and get things done.
Sure. You're mentioning about being part of the team. During the LUSD meeting or interview a few minutes ago, it was brought up that in many cases boards will vote unanimously, even though not everyone necessarily agrees with that unanimous vote. I know recently on Facebook someone just literally said that they voted in favor when they didn't agree. How do you feel about that? Do you think that the unanimous vote shows something, or do you think that it's better to stand by your convictions even if you may be in disagreement with the rest of the team?
You're paid to represent here, so my vote is my vote, but it's also representing the good at Mountain House. Now, there's some things I feel a conviction on, and I'm going to torpedo that, and you're probably not going to, if I think it's wrong, you're probably not going to change my mind that it's right. If I have enough information and I've formulated my idea of right and wrong, you're probably not going to change me too much. But there are some things that I don't need to fall on the sword for. There are some things I can compromise on. That my priorities, my key issues, I'm probably going to want to stick to my guns on some of those. Other ones, you might not hear me talking a lot on the board meetings. I only talk if I have something to say about the issue.
Maybe your impression changed some of the board meetings.
But no, I feel it's if you got something to say, you need to say it. But I'm not going to say the same thing. Voting unanimously, I'm not going to say the same thing that 4 other people said. I'm just not going to be the guy that does that. We're leaders on the board. I think part of leadership is convincing other people to see things your way, or get them to influence them to do something that you think is right. That's what I bring to the board. And I'm there with 5 other equals. They're all leaders, and sometimes it's time to lead, sometimes it's time to follow, and sometimes it's time to get out of the way.
Well, I mean, same question to you basically, Steve. As a sitting board member, do you feel that it's better to vote, with a unanimous face, or to stand by certain convictions?
Well, I'm pretty much echoing what Brian said. I believe that you got to follow your conviction. I mean, you have 5 different personalities, and that's the reason. That's the beauty about America and this country. We both serve this country. We come from different. We went to different countries and saw how they worked. And every time I come back, even I had complaints when I left. When I come back for redeployment, I mean, I kissed the ground that we live on here, because this country and democracy and what we have this opportunity to this venue right now just to talk and discuss. And I really take that to heart as a board member. I mean, you get elected, you represent your constituents, but the one thing that I do is, we have this little military decision-making process. You can probably, appreciate that. But the important piece about that is that if I come in with a decision, but if I hear my other board members and they give me more factual information and analysis, it could change my vote. So I'm not going to come in closed-minded and say, well, I'm stubborn and this is my vote because that's how I feel. And if I hear some other board member data and it's that actual factual information, it may change me, because that's happened throughout my tenure there. I think you have to come with an open mind, look at factual information and data, and then also consider sort of the better broad of the community, not just one special group, but the entire community, if that decision is going to help out. And if there's a time we all agree as one, those are far in between, but they do happen.
One more topic I actually wanted to bring up was recently the CSD staff voted to unionize. Do you guys have any opinions on what the unionization will do for or to Mountain House as far as costs or really anything? How do you feel about unionization of the CSD employees? Steve, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
Ready to go.
I'm right in the middle of that thing right now. So the only thing I can say is I think unionization is a good thing. I'm not fear of it. I think it's a good thing. I know more employees, being an at-will employee versus being an employee with property rights. I mean, if I was an employee here, I would be quite nervous because I have no property rights, meaning that you can be dismissed at any time. So I mean, that's a good thing. The other thing too, there's some venues and outlets to deal with any type of divisiveness and communicate with them. And then we have one source to deal with as far as salaries and benefits and increases rather than individually as contract out. So there are some good aspects with the union. It's just a matter of that we just have to, it's a new animal with us for the board, and we have to learn how to negotiate with that and understand it, and especially with their bylaws, which I think it's a good thing. So unionization is not a bad thing. It just matters you just have to be open-minded, but at the same time you don't give the house away.
Brian, go ahead.
Well, first of all, it's probably not a choice for us to make, so.
So I wasn't trying to imply it's a choice.
Yeah, so
Well, they made the choice to unionize.
sure, and like it or not, they're here, but I would, I would want to address the issues that led to
Unionization.
Yeah, unionization. I mean, we're small here, but how many paid staff are there? 20?
Steve?
We have 17 full-time employees.
Okay, and now we have a union, and we got 14,000 folks in this town. I'm just thinking, how do we get to this point where I got 17 employees and now I got a union? I mean, to me, and I don't, granted, I don't work with unions in my day-to-day business and stuff. Dad was a plumber, so he was in the union, and he didn't always like them. He didn't always like the fees that he was paying out to the union, and they weren't really doing anything for him that he saw. But I know they do things. They do represent. They do have help the employees get treated fairly. And I think that's the issue why we got the union in here, is because the employees don't feel like they were treated fairly. And that's what I would want to address, is when you communicate and when you manage and when you operate, you got to have everybody feel like they're valued members. If they don't feel like they're valued members, and they don't feel like you're communicating with them, and they don't feel like things are fair, that's when we have trouble in River City. And I think part of that was due to probably due to communication breakdown or whatever. So now we've got an intermediary. Not a fan of intermediaries, but it is what it is. So I would do my best to support what we need to support with it.
Just real quick, just close up on that. To respond with Brian, and again, is one of the things that we want to incorporate the city. I don't think you'll find any city in this state that doesn't have a union to deal with. So I mean, that's going to be part of the growth. So we're looking at it as part of the first step of when we want to incorporate it to the city, because you're going to have that. So I mean, now we're returned very quickly.
So I know we've brought this up before because we're just a fan of the school board. So obviously the school board has a union, right? So the teachers have a union. So we've discussed the boards coming together and trying to figure out how to help each other out. Small community, right? 5 over here, 5 over here. We all have the same interests. We share the same land, right? We have the same property. So is there a possibility maybe something can be learned from an organization that already has a union?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think you hit it right on the head with that. I mean, we have 2 boards. We need to work together. There's no doubt. Because at the end of the day, when we pay taxes, it's coming out of one wallet. That's my wallet. I'm a resident, same thing here. So whether I'm paying school taxes or it's coming out one wall. So one of the things, if we work together, there's things that we don't have to pay for redundancy, right? Joint use agreements. And so there's a lot of potential future things that we can do. But the first thing we need to do is establish good relationships with the board, and then we can strategically plan ahead for things. I mean, that to me is just a huge goal that I think it's very achievable, but it's a must-have. It really is.
Definitely leveraging our partners. The school board and the CSD should be on the same page, should be sharing expertise, should be looking for those opportunities to piggyback on things we both need, so that we don't we just can't afford to both pay for separate things. I'm big on partnerships because they save money, they're efficient, and they build strong bonds and mutual support and trust, and I think that's important. I'd like to feel like everybody has our best interest in mind, and you feel more like they have our best interests in mind when we're partnering up with stuff, because we both get benefits, and when we both partner up, the benefits can become multipliers, and you get an even better product because we're both invested in it. It costs us half the money, and we get twice the outcome from it. So that's my feeling on that.
Do we have any more questions from the audience by chance? No, I don't have any more questions. We're live too, that's
More audience
terrible.
questions?
So bad at live.
So I have a question for you. Oh, sorry, I know I have lots of questions.
Go.
Obviously, we have concurrent elections, right? We have school board and CSD. Any reason in particular you chose CSD over the school board and you're choosing to continue?
Good question. My response is there's work to be done, and we need to re-engage it and get back to work again.
My skill set is not school board skill set, so that's why I'm here.
You hate education?
My skill set is service contracts, support agreements, auditing, financial processes. I'm not a budget guy, but I look for fraud. I look for preventing fraud, waste, and abuse as part of my job, and I think I can. Not saying any, Steve's got a bunch of fraud, waste, and abuse now, but that's what I do. I think I could help out with my insights. That's why I gravitated to the CSD. Also, Steve asked me to run.
Well, yeah, and Lynette, just answer back. I mean, I gave you a short answer, but the reality is there's a lot of work to be done for this community, and we're going in the right direction, positive growth. And our board members, that I'll tell you, it's sometimes a thankless job. It's a lot of hours to put in. You have to consume a lot of information about master plans, development agreements, sub-development agreements. They're understanding different type of funds, we have budgets. At the same time, we're taking a lot of information of what why you only have a grocery store, and then try to explain to them. But one of the things I think is important, if we get a frequent answer question sheet, so that if when folks move into Mountain House for the first time, because we get the same question over, just hit that question sheet and explain certain things, so we don't have to do that. But on a serious note, the single water source system, I'm really passionate about. We, as a community, we have to have a secondary water source system. And I've been jumping up and down about the thing, and I'm still going to do that until we come with some resolution on that. The other thing, road maintenance, our infrastructure, getting our town set up for future, for incorporation, and then looking at our master plan. And then what is those triggers? Because to me, what's important for strategic planning is what are the triggers for our master plans, a specific plan 3. And it's hard to get that information. I mean, I understand I've asked about it, but it's a very complex thing. But really, if you want to plan a strategic plan, you've got to understand what are the trigger dates, what we're entitled to, and to make sure that we look as a contemporary today versus 20 years ago. So there's a lot of work to be done, and guess what? You get paid a whole lot of money for doing all that. But zero, well, no, I don't take anything.
It's close.
I know, I don't take pay, and I just don't think it's worth $100 to keep that for our coffers. But the thing is, you have to be passionate about it.
Oh, yeah.
I believe in this community. I have family here. I've been here for 10 years. Went through the hard times. I think I see and I meet folks like everyone around here, friends, and every time I get frustrated, or sometimes I just want to go in the town, I just take a look at my friends and family, and it's just re-energizes me to say, what, we got to move forward. Just like you all here taking the time to do this thing. We're going to make this happen. It's going to happen. It's just we've got to do it in a positive growth and work together. Thank you.
Sure. So, speaking of work together, one more question from the audience is this: are there any other areas you can think of where we might benefit in more of a partnership between the CSD and the LUSD? Is there anything else you can think of as far as that might help?
Well, I mean, certainly I can throw a million things out, but I think
we have time for a million.
But I know. I can give you one. One of the things right now, I'll tell you what. So I'll keep this one short for you, buddy. It's the public safety. I mean, I reached out to the Lambertville School District for public safety because they have a committee. So we're going to do a joint committee to see how we can work together with our public safety committee, there's to discuss the traffic regarding our Mustang and Central.
Oh, crossing guards.
Crossing guards.
I
So,
love this subject.
Then you look at STAR programs, other programs that we can bring to help augment. We're talking about, like for instance, extra patrol, right? STAR program, High Patrol just came out here. There's a program they're going to start up with seniors. So there's a lot of potential things that we can do and get started up here. But with the school district, public safety is important. So I did reach out, and we are going to have a meeting in December, possibly January. And I think it's huge because we need to, for our emergency operations man, we've been working on. We have to sync those together. We really do. So that's one start.
That's good. Brian, do you have one too? Do you want to pop that in your head?
Well, definitely, we're partners with Lambertsville Union School District. Our kids go to school here. We have a vested interest in it. Now, where you're going to get the flack from me is when we start talking money. If it's appropriated, if it's not, if it's if it's requirement. That's where I'm going to come in. But there's ways around things. Where litigation is what everybody's worried about. So let's have people sign, crossing guards, for example. I'm against spending $40,000 a year to have a crossing guard during the school year, or several crossing guards, or whatever. Let's figure out how we can get volunteers to be crossing guards. If we're worried about getting sued, let's sign a waiver and get folks to be crossing guards like they were when I was going to school when I was a kid. I was a crossing guard. Did a pretty good damn job too. And it didn't cost any money. So that's my angle. That's where I'm coming from. But yep, my kids are in school. Appreciate teachers. Appreciate the school board, and I'm going to support the Lambertsville Union School District.
I got a question for them. What personal characteristic do you think you have that makes you the most suitable to be a board member?
I guess I'll answer that first. It's my charming personality. Definitely. No, actually, seriously, I can get along with teams, and I mentioned lead follower, get out of the way earlier. I can compromise. I can lead. When I'm called to do it. But I think I've dealt with, in 20 years in the Army, over 20 years, I've dealt with all kinds of different types of folks. Always been respectful. Always got the job done. We've had to do the job when under difficult conditions with not enough resources. Same thing as the CSD are facing right now. My thing I bring to the table is leadership, communication, and able to get along with folks and get the job done.
I have a question. Okay, so you keep talking about cutting, right? You're saying we gotta tighten up the purse strings. We gotta find places that we don't need to spend money. So can you just give me an example right now of why we would want to raise taxes? Everyone
Sure.
stop paying attention.
Sure, we would want to raise taxes if somebody says the consequences of not paying for this thing are going to cost us a lot of money in the long run. If we don't fix this problem now, 5 years, we're going to be spending 5 times as much for this problem. Then, okay, you got me there. I'm interested in hearing, because you're an engineer or you're a master planner or you got something that you're sharing with me. I hear you. Then my job is to explain to the taxpayers, this is why we got to raise taxes, max it out every year. But I don't accept crazy train where we keep maxing out taxes every year. That to me says we're not in control. So I want to demonstrate that we are in control and lower taxes. The 2% is the normal cost of living increase. I would like to see 0% increase in taxes, but maybe 2%. If we max out again, and I'm on the board, I probably don't need to run again, because I feel very strongly that we need to demonstrate that we can control ourselves, control our spending, and I think there is not a lot of our budget which is discretionary that we can cut. So that's the challenge, but that's the challenge I accept. That's the challenge I want the CSD working on and giving us that prioritized list so I can do my job and look at things and say, I agree, this is priority here, we'll spend it here, we won't spend it there. But like I said, if it's going to cost us more than, if a 4% increase is going to prevent us from paying too much money later on, then that's what we need to explain to everybody.
Same question.
Well, increasing taxes is an ugly thing, isn't it? You have to look at what our budget is. We go into budget planning, and we have to look at what our costs are and look at what the revenues that we have, and so really it's going to dictate a lot of what we're looking at as far as our budgeting and what things that we need, and we may have to prioritize, and that's going to really determine on our on our taxes. But the tough part about Mountain House is we don't have any other revenue other than our rooftops, and like what Brian says, sometimes we have to kind of determine our needs and wants, because if we go and continue like in the past, if you take a course of just continuing to spend without prioritizing your needs and wants, you can really get in the red pretty quick, and we don't have that. We shouldn't take that venue or take that road. We're a growing town, a brand new town, and we can really direct ourselves to the destiny we want to be. But tax is a tough thing, and again, like I said, I'll have to go back once we get into the budget cycle again in March, and we spend 3 months looking at what the costs are, and with our staff, and they're coming back with us, and then we got the wish list from the community, and so we have to weigh all that out. So at that time, I got to take a look at it to commit to anything.
You have the budget workshops too, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I really encourage you all, please, and maybe we can use technology to get out and reach out with the public, so you see what what's happening on that. Really important. Thank you.
I think that's all the questions we've had for you guys tonight. I appreciate you guys coming in, spending some time with Lynette and I, and the rest of the team here at the MH Matters What's Going On Forum interview.
Shea Center.
Slash Shea Center. Thank you. Did any of you have any quick final statements you want to make, just as a quick sign off?
Thanks so much for doing this, Corey, and especially after your accident, being out here, I think you're pretty hard. But thank you both, Lynette, for doing this. We're representing Mountain House here, and people outside of Mountain House watch this too, I have no doubt. But thank you guys for this service that you're providing to our community, and helping get the information out. I just appreciate you, and grateful for this opportunity.
Sure. Thank you for running. I know it's hard.
Been there.
It takes something.
It does. It does. A lot of energy. I'm not just like Brian said. I'm gonna echo what he said, but just close up and say, look, Mountain House residents, if you're not registered to vote, please do so. November 4th. Too late. Well, you know what? You are registered to vote. Get out there, vote. If you haven't out there, let your conviction go. And again, thank you all.
Thank you very much. I think that's we're going to wrap up the live show. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. Hopefully you've got some good information out there. If you asked a question and we liked it, we asked it.
If not, ask them directly.
If not, you can go to their websites or send them emails, and they will respond to your questions personally. Just as Ms. Lampel said earlier, the best way to communicate with any candidate, I think. So thank you, and have a good night.